Good morning. You can see the sun is coming this way. I need to get one of those halo lamps. They sell them on Taobao. They're not expensive. I should really get one and just, have diffused lighting and, get one of those fancy microphones. I have my microphone right here, but I've seen people with like really fancy microphones. So maybe 11/11 is coming. Singles Day in China, biggest shopping day in on the planet, I guess. Yeah, probably because it's bigger than Black whatever it's called, Black Monday, Black Friday. What do you call it in America? I don't know. Maybe I should buy something. Anyhow, I'm going to talk about three films today. The first one is The Rental, which has been playing on the streaming services since July, but for some reason it's opening. Well, it opened here yesterday in our cinemas. Don't know why, but it is. I saw it back in July. I should have written something about it. I don't know why I didn't. I thought I had, but I checked my notes and I hadn't. So this is actor Dave Franco's directorial debut. Now, if you don't know who Dave Franco is, you might, but he's probably best known to people as James Franco's little brother. He was in If Beale Street Could Talk. He was in The Disaster Artist with his brother, and he's probably best known for the Now You See Me franchise, which apparently there's a third one coming eventually. I only saw the first one. I thought it was complete rubbish. I didn't see the second one. So as I said, now he's directing his first film. He also co-wrote the screenplay to this film along with Joe Swanberg, who he was the writer for the Netflix show Easy, which I've never seen. He did the film. He also wrote Drinking Buddies. So this guy's done a fair bit of writing. And Franco has also produced this film. So a bit of a vanity project. Now the story is we have Charlie, who's played by Dan Stevens. Everybody knows Dan Stevens, probably best known from Downton Abbey, but of course lately from the Eurovision Song Contest, which surprisingly, thinking about it, now that we're close to the end of the year, that was really one of my favorite films of the year. I'm surprised I'm even saying that, but it's true, it was. So anyway, we have Charlie, his wife Michelle, played by Alison Brie, who's also Mrs. Dave Franco in real life. She was in The Disaster Artist, but she's probably also best known for a few TV shows like Glow, Community, and Mad Men. She was Trudy in Mad Men. And so also, digressing here. So we have Charlie, Michelle, Charlie's business partner Mina, played by Sheila Vand from TV's Snowpiercer, and her boyfriend Josh, played by Jeremy Allen White, who is in TV's Shameless, and he also happens to be Charlie's less successful brother. The four of them, and finally I'm getting it out here, the four of them decide to rent a property. To do like an Airbnb thing. And it's a beautiful place. It's a stunning cliffside house overlooking the Pacific Ocean, and they rent this for a weekend getaway together. Now, once they're at the property, they meet Taylor, played by Toby Huss, who was in the latest film, Halloween. And he's the caretaker of the property, and he says and does a few things that don't sit well with Mina. Now, with Michelle asleep and Josh passed out on the sofa, Charlie and Mina, now just to recap, Charlie is Mina's business partner, and Mina's dating Charlie's brother, and Charlie's married. So Charlie and Mina have shower sex, but then they decide they're never going to do that again. Now the next day, Mina discovers that the shower head has been fitted with a spy cam, and she alerts Charlie, and they think that Taylor, the caretaker, must have installed it, but they agree that they can't tell the other people, Michelle or Josh. Now, as events unfold in the house, Mina spills the beans, but that's not the worst of the problems. A masked man has snuck into the house. That's all I'm going to say about the film. Now, for a first effort, I think Franco delivers a well-paced thriller with plenty of jump scares to keep audiences hooked, and there's good performances all around from the actors. My feeling, though, is that the story didn't need to go in that direction of the masked man. I was happy with it just being, I think, if it just would have been a psychological drama about couples who are dealing with the fallout of an indiscretion and what happens afterwards. There's a few things that happen in the movie that could have still happened in my version of the movie. It didn't need this masked man. But it did, and and what happens is all hell breaks loose, and Franco gives the film an ambiguous ending. Now, he has said in interviews that he's open to the possibility of a sequel, so maybe that's why he did it. I don't know. To me, it lost points on that, but it's certainly a lot better than most of what's on our screens these days. So, you know what? If you haven't seen it yet, I'd say check it out. It's also on the streaming services, so if you're not in Hong Kong, check it out. It's certainly not bad. It's not, to me, it's not as good as it could have been, but not bad at all. So, you know what? I don't think it's going to be here in Hong Kong for very long because, you know what? Everybody here either has Netflix or has access to what's on Netflix, and I won't say what kind of access that is. I'll leave that up to your imagination. So I don't think it'll be playing in our cinemas for very long. But anyhow, it's not bad. It's better than a lot of things. All right, that was the first film. Second one I want to talk about is The Social Dilemma, which it premiered on. It landed on Netflix a couple weeks ago. I think in September. I can't remember. Yeah, maybe in September. And I finally got around to watching it. Now, I have a friend. I'm dry because it's the morning, so bear with me. Oh, good coffee. I have a friend whom I consider to be fairly intelligent and well-grounded, yet every few days she posts some batshit crazy conspiracy theory or fake news story on her Facebook feed. And when I see that, I think to myself, here's a reasonably sane person who actually believes that COVID-19 is a hoax, Hillary Clinton is running a satanic pedophile ring out of the basement of a pizzeria in Washington, D.C., wind turbines cause cancer, Sleepy Joe Biden takes performance enhancing and drugs, fill in the blank, whatever it is. Just crazy stuff. And I'm thinking, how does that even happen? Well, once you watch The Social Dilemma, you'll understand how that happens. The Social Dilemma tells us something that many of us have suspected for a long time. The social media companies are, I feel like I'm advocating, the social media companies are shaping our opinions. Now, filmmaker Joel Orlovsky, he did a couple of films that received good reviews. I haven't seen either of them. I should probably check them out. One's called Chasing Coral, about coral reefs, and the other's called Chasing Ice. I believe it's about melting ice floes. I'm not sure. He interviews a number of former executives from Silicon Valley's biggest names, and the picture they paint is not pretty at all. We have companies like Google, Facebook, Twitter, Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon. They're hard at work keeping your eyes glued to their sites as long as possible. The one with the best algorithm to achieve that will earn billions and billions and billions of dollars through advertising. Now, if you're thinking you never buy anything that's advertised on Facebook or YouTube, you're fooling yourself. You may not be buying that product or service today, but with the idea put in your head, you may one day soon, or you may mention it to a friend. That's worth something to advertisers. So that, of course they want you to buy something today, but they're putting it in your head. It's the same thing on TV. If Coca-Cola is advertised on TV, you're not going to run out and buy a Coke or go into the fridge and and get a Coke. Well, you might, but you're going to think about it, and that's what they want. But that's not even the most insidious part of their activities. Going back to my friend that I mentioned before, I used to wonder, how does she even come across these conspiracy theories to post? They don't show up in my Facebook feed, so why are they showing up in hers? And the answer again is the algorithm. Based on what she's clicked on in the past, or even how long her screen has rested on a particular image, the algorithm assumes that this is a subject that interests her, and so it gives her more of the same. So critics of social media say it's like giving drugs to a drug addict, and their analogy isn't wrong, say the people in the film. According to them, the longer you stay on a social media site, the more it can learn about you, and the more it learns about you, the more valuable the information is to advertisers. So to do that, they feed your hunger. They give you what you want. And for many people, their social media page is their prime, if not only, source of news and information. And that's That's frightening, but it's true. If all you're seeing is story after story after story about how vaccines cause autism, you're going to start believing it. You're going to believe it must be true. But maybe, you know what, maybe you think you're smarter than this. Maybe you get your news from credible news sources that give you a balanced and informed viewpoint. Unfortunately, the social media giants have got you figured out regardless. There's a reason why Facebook bought WhatsApp, why Microsoft bought Skype, why Amazon is pushing Alexa, why Apple is pushing Siri, and why Google tracks everything you say, do, or go on your Android-powered mobile device. With every keystroke, every spoken word, and every location you visit, they are learning something about you. Now, if it all sounds pretty bleak, Jaron Lanier, one of the film's subject matter experts, has a solution. He says, get off social media. Stop being what he calls the product. Easier said than done. Not surprisingly, Facebook has pushed back against these points raised in the film, saying it, quote, gives a distorted view of how social media platforms work to create a convenient scapegoat for what are difficult and complex societal problems. Well, you know what, Mark Zuckerberg? We just don't believe you. The problem is, though, we're already hooked on your drug and we want more. That's really what The Social Dilemma is all about. It's streaming now on Netflix. Might scare you, but it's definitely worth a watch. I think it's a very good film. You know what? If you watch it, you may just think twice the next time you're about to click on that social media app that you love so much. They got us. They absolutely got us. But personally, well, I don't want to get political here, but anyhow. So that's the social media. All right. Finally, I'm going to talk about another film that has been out for a while, and it opened here yesterday as well. I'm not sure it's on the streaming services. Might be. I don't know. And that's called It Must Be Heaven. It's a Palestinian comedy. What's that you say, Howard? A Palestinian comedy? Sounds like an oxymoron. For sure. When we think Palestinian, we don't think comedy. But that's where Elias Suleiman has made his mark in cinema. The Palestinian actor, writer, and director of the award-winning 2002 film Divine Intervention humorously looked at a day in the life of a Palestinian living in Nazareth, Israel, whose girlfriend lives in the West Bank city of Ramallah. And though the two cities are just under 90 kilometers apart, the travel time between them can take as long as 3 hours due to the security checkpoints along the way. Now, Suleiman is back after a 10-year absence, although he did make a short film 8 years ago. And again, he's finding humor in the absurdity of the mundane. This is what his thing is. Now, in It Must Be Heaven, Suleiman once again plays a fictional version of himself. Living in Nazareth, as the real Suleiman does, he deals with life's head-scratching moments in a nonplussed manner without ever saying a word. Later on in the film, he goes to New York and he does say something, which you can see in the trailer. But that's really the only time he talks in the film. I think that is the only time he talks in the film. Searching for a bit of sanity from the craziness of Palestine and Nazareth, he heads to Paris, but he finds that city just as bizarre as his own, with policemen on electric unicycles, residents bogarting chairs in a public park, and a bird that just won't leave his hotel room. Those scenes were quite funny. Now, he then makes his way to New York City, where he meets up with his friend, Gael Garcia Bernal, who people would know from The Kindergarten Teacher. He was one of the voice actors in Coco, and of course he was in Neruda, a fabulous film. The Mexican actor wants to help Suleiman get his film made, but while it seems that everyone's happy to have him in New York, no one's interested in his film because it's not, quote, Palestinian enough. And in the end, he returns to Nazareth, back to the absurdities that he knows best. Now, many have compared Suleiman's style to those of Buster Keaton, Jacques Tati, and even perhaps Mr. Bean, or you can say Rowan Atkinson as Mr. Bean, as the audiences see the world through their characters. Now, in scene after scene, the director positions the camera squarely on his characters' faces. It's really quite nicely done. And he forces the audience to focus on their eyes to glean what they're thinking. Now, in the fictional Suleiman's case, those eyes reveal everything from a simple curiosity to downright bewilderment. And where the film really excels are the highly choreographed street scenes in all three cities that play out like modern ballets. Really, really well done, well framed, well choreographed, beautiful use of color and lighting. I was impressed with those. Unfortunately, I was less impressed because my happiness or impression with them was tempered a little bit because they all run slightly too long and they can get a bit tedious to all but the most ardent Suleiman fan. Now, audiences have become used to seeing Palestinian films with a political message, and perhaps this is the problem that the fictional Suleiman has with his fictional film. It's not political, or it's not political enough. This is what they're saying when they're saying it's not Palestinian enough. Now, while It Must Be Heaven does have a hint of a political message to it, it's mostly about a man who comes to the realization that however screwed up it is, there's no place like home. So I thought that was okay. You know what? Well, let me just say, before I get to that, the film premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in May of 2019. It took home the Fipresci Prize for Best Film in Competition. It was later selected as Palestine's entry for the Academy Award, I think last year, for Best International Film Feature, but it failed to make the short list of nominees. Now, as I said, the film opened yesterday in Hong Kong. Although I appreciated the camera work, the choreography, I thought those were excellent. The whole film, as an entirety, it didn't do a lot for me. Maybe because each scene was drawn out a bit too long. I don't know. Just to me, it was like, okay, it was okay. I wasn't as wowed with the whole as I was with the parts. I can't imagine that the film will find an audience here, but you know what? These are strange times we live in. Anything's possible. So that's called It Must Be Heaven. Check it out. As I said, I don't know if it's streaming. Might be. Yeah, check it out. It's not a terrible film by any means. It's a pretty good film. Just I think the pacing needed to be tightened a little bit. That's about it. So there you got 3 films, 3 choices. It's not often I say, these are 3 films you should watch. I'm not saying they're all great films. I really thought the Social Dilemma was a very good film. But I'm not saying they're all great films, but they're good films. So if you're looking for something to watch this weekend, there you got 3 for you. That's it. There's a lot more films that opened in Hong Kong yesterday. I didn't see some of them because there was just so many. And next week I got 3 press screenings. So there's a lot of films coming to Hong Kong. Nothing, earth-shattering for the next, I think December the 10th is the next big tentpole film that is coming. So that's about it. Have a good weekend. Have a good week. Please remember to wear a mask. Mask saves lives. See ya.